Namaste. After a break of a couple of weeks, we can restart the session. Sorry for the gaps in between. चतुर्मुखसमारम्भां वाग्भटाचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् रागादिरोगान् सततानुषक्तान् शेषगाय प्रसृतान् शेषान् औत्सुक्यमोहारदिदान् जघान यो पूर्ववैद्याय नमोऽस्तु तस्मै. In our last session, we discussed about the Majja and we presented some ideas about the function or the karma of Majja Dhadu, especially its potential in the nourishment of Indriyas and Manas. I hope at least a few of the listeners looked into that idea seriously. Definitely, that will be adding to the quality of their clinical practice. Now, we shall look into the last dhadu, Shukra. I think once the description about dhadus are over, we have to slowly switch over to, I think, maybe topic wise or title wise sessions. I think that may be easy also. Now, coming to Shukra dhadu, it is the last dhadu, the end product or the last one of all the transformations in the dhadu level happening to the ahara sara, rasa dhatu. And that is the dhadu assigned with the function of procreation, garbhodpadascha. Regarding the Bhuda or Bhautika signature of Shukradhadu, I have a feeling that it is Jala predominant with a significant support from the Agni and a good bulk of Prithvi in its finest form. Then Vayu and Akasha are less dominant. Here, I told that with a significant support from the Agni. Here, Agni is Tejasvarupa in general, not Tapasvarupa. This is a baseline. This is baseline. Then only we can understand what all changes can happen. And Shleshma, Shesheshu. So, Shukra is a niche of Kabhadosha. We saw that Shukradhadu is assigned with the function of procreation, Garbhodpadascha. So when come to that point, certain things are very important. Procreation is essential for the survival of the species. There is no question about it. But unlike the functions of other dhadus like rasa, rakta, mamsa, medas, this function of procreation is more about a potential which is used on an as and when required basis. Shukradhadu need not engage in its function all the time as the other dhadus do. Life has its own priorities. This, so it is a potential. It is a potential to procreate. This functional potential of Shukradhadu rises up at a particular period of life, then it peaks to the best, continues to be in that stage, then slowly comes down to touch the bottom line again. So that way it is one sort of a as and when required style. That period is where it is required. Even during this period, this potential is kept as a potential and it is not used or it is not delivered as a day-to-day business, as is the case with other dhatus. See, prinanam, jivanam, lepaha, it is an uninterrupted process. You can't expect a matram even, where Mamsadhadu has the potential to do the lepanam, but it is not doing it. Or Medodhadu is having the potential to do Snehanam, but it is not doing at present. That is unimaginable. But Shukradhadu is not like that. Shukradhadu has the potential to procreate, but it is not doing it now. So it is not on a day-to-day basis. These things are important. So Shukradhadu is there. Garbhodpadaha is its function. Then when it is not required, Shukradhadu will be adding to some other form of balam to the Sharira. That we will come to. But before coming to that, I think we should get a clear idea about the this particular dhatu. Because, see, Shukra is a word which is used without much specificity in the literature. And this has created a lot of confusions and sometimes controversies. That is a big problem. It is not confined or limited to Shukradhatu. There are many words like that which is used without specificity, causing a lot of confusions. I think a new work should keep all these confusions aside, and we should be able to discuss the Shastra without controversies. Everyone agrees that Shukra is the name of the seventh dhatu in human beings. But the most common meaning attributed to the word Shukra is semen, the male ejaculatory fluid. And this male ejaculatory fluid is interpreted as a Shukradhadu very often, and there are many situations where it creates a feeling that even the author himself is trying to reflect that idea. That is not fair. It is not justifiable. because it inadvertently or quite mistakenly proposes that females have only six dhadus. That is why it is not justifiable. Females also should have seven dhadus. So, Shukra cannot be semen always. But this sort of a precision cannot be seen in the literature. That is the sad part of it. So we should have an understand about this trend of naming Shukra as semen. Let us look into something around that idea and proceed to the next steps of understanding this particular a very peculiar dhatu in the sharira. It is quite fashionable to mention Shukra as the male reproductive principle, tattva. Shukra is the male reproductive principle. Shukrasya bahulyad puman raktasya stri. So Shukra represents the male reproductive principle and Artava as its female counterpart. This problem is there with the word Artava also. Artava is a word which represents the menstrual flow or menstrual blood in general. So that is gross, visible, and that is femininity. So the other word Shukra became a standard one to refer the male reproductive fluid, semen. Artava happens in a female body only, and it happens in a specific pattern and period, which we call as Rutu, and it indicates the fertility in females. Similarly, what happened? Semen is the flow happening in the male, and it reflected the male fertility. So that could be the reason for using the words Shukra and Artava for the male and female reproductive principles respectively. The tangible representation of fertility in male and female. But unfortunately, what happened? Because of the same word used, the Saptama Dhadu itself is considered as the semen, indirectly proposing that the female does not have the seventh Dhatu. See, at one point we find Shukram Shuklam Guru Snigtham Madhuram Bahalam Bahu Kridamakshigatailabham Sadgarbhaya Artavam Punaha Laksharasa Shashasrabham Dhaudam Yacha Virajyate. Here Shukra means the seminal fluid and Artava the menstrual flow. There are many situations similarly. In Sushrutam Shariram, third chapter, we find Tatra Stri Pumsayoho Samyoge तेजः शरीराद् वायुरुदीरयति ततस्तेजोनिलसन्निपाताद् शुक्रं च्युतं योनिमभिप्रतिपद्यते संसृज्यते च आर्तवेन ततः अग्निशोमसंयोगाद् संसृज्यमानः गर्भाशयम् अनुप्रतिपद्यते तद तेजोनिलसंयो सन्निपाताद् शुक्रं च्युतम्. So Shukra grossly represents the semen. And yonim abhipradipadyade samsrajyade cha artavena. So interestingly, here the artava is not the menstrual flow. Similarly, in the fourth chapter of Sushrutam Shariram, we find Kritsna Deha Asritam Shukram Prasanna Manasastadha Strishu Vyayachadascha Abhi Harshat Tat Sampravartate. So here we find that the Shukram is spread all over the body, Krishna Dehasridam, but Harshad Tat Sampravartate. Here also the Shukra ultimately is deputed to represent semen. Similarly, we can find many references reflecting the same idea. And because of this lack of precision in explanation, all these textual notes have heavily contributed to establish the notion that Shukra is semen. It is the ejaculatory fluid. Interestingly, the presence of a similar ejaculatory fluid in female is also observed and documented, which is again named as Shukra. Yoshitobi sravatyeva shukram pumsas samagame. Yoshitobi sravatyeva shukram pumsah samagame. Garbhasya tanna kinchittu karodi. Iti na chintyate. It is not taken for a detailed discussion as it is not contributing for the garbha. So, Shukra is to show the ejaculatory fluid. That has created a lot of damage to the proper understanding of Shukra Dhatu, unfortunately. We have to admit it. Meantime, our area of interest is that Shukra is primarily the name given to the seventh Dhatu. But as I mentioned, because of the widespread use of the word Shukra to represent semen, this concept itself is many a times overlooked. Many a times we even forget that Shukra is the seventh Dhatu, but we have some sort of a pre-imprinted notion that Shukra is semen. That is not going to help us. That is not going. Definitely, the ejaculatory fluid is also called Shukra, but basically, Shukra, the word Shukra, is supposed to reflect or represent the seventh dhatu. So, we should understand the Shukra dhatu properly. Let us see it further. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, we also will think that the women, the females, have only six dhatus. That is not the case. The seventh dhatu in both male and female is Shukra. In both cases, it is the niche of Kabhadosha. In both cases, both genders, it is the niche of Kabhadosha, specifying its or highlighting its nature as Snigdha and Shita. As Snigdha and Shita. Having said that, there are some important points to remember or to uh, think about. That is going to be the most important factor. See, In female body, definitely there is a difference between male body and female body. And what is the difference? How does it manifest? We should understand that. Then only we will be able to differentiate the male and female Shukradhatus. In the female body, an element of Agni or Pitta by default, by Swabhava, travels through the medium of Rasadhadu from the Paktisthana towards the Artavavahasrodas and starts operating from there. At a particular time period of life or for a particular span of life. Artavavahe dve tayormoolam garbhashaya artavavahinyascha dhamanyaha. Artavavaha srotas. This happens with, actually, this manifests, the function of this particular pitta manifests very clearly with the onset of menarche. But prior to that itself, it start operating. The preparations happen. Or when it is fully operational, the menarche sets in. This additionally operating Agni makes a lot of changes in the female body. So prior to the menarche itself, this Agni start operating. It reflects all over the body in general, but the influence is specific on certain areas. Tvak, Kesha, Stana, etc. are the commonly reflected areas of this particular Pitta or Agni, whereas Shukradhadu, the seventh Dhadu, receives a specific share of this Agneyata. It receives a specific share of this Agneyata. Garbhashaya is also a priority area. In Shukradhadu, it has an inherent Agni, an inherent share of Agni. That inherent share of the Agni in Shukradhadu gets an additional push when this new surge of Pitta is happening. This continues all throughout the reproductive period of the individual. Tad varshad dwadashad urdhvam yadi panchashata kshayam. Once the individual attains menopause, this unit of Pitta or Agni slowly regresses, returns back to its original seat and merges with the Pachaka Pitta. It merges with the Pachaka Pitta. Like the Jivatma merging with the Paramatma and attaining moksha. But interestingly, in many women, this moksha of Pajaka Pitta, which is operating in their Artavaha Srotas, is not happening these days due to multiple reasons. I am not going to those details. Everybody in the clinics will be knowing that it is not happening, creating lot of unwanted issues caused by this uh, Jivatma, which is wandering in the Sharira without attaining moksha. Now, one point we should understand in between. We learn that the function of Shukradhadu is Garbhodpadana. Garbhodpadascha dhadunam sreshtham karma kramasmritam. I don't remember whether we have discussed this aspect earlier in detail. What is that? Shukradhadu of an individual cannot do the function of Garbhodpadana on its own. It is only one half. The other half, which resides in the other gender, is also essential for fulfilling that function. So that way, I think Shukra is an Artha Dhatu. It's not a Purna Dhatu. It requires a Samyoga for that. And one point is very important. This Samyoga is not at the Dhadu level. It is not the Samyoga of the male Shukradhadu and the female Shukradhadu, but that Samyoga is at the Bija level, Stri Bija and Pum Bija. The Shukradhadu in female facilitates, or to a good extent owns, the making of Stri Bija. And the same in the female facilitates or owns the making of Pumbija. And the Samyoga of these Bijas is responsible for Garbhodpadana. So, Garbhodpadascha dhadunam, I think it is to be understood in a subtle level, in a finer level. Then only we will get these points. So, it is because of the influence of an additional Agni that these sort of changes which are happening. And that is because of the Swabhava. Swabhava. Swabhavam Ishwaram Kalam Yadrucham Niyadim Tatha Parinamam Cha. Isn't it? Different types of Karana. Here, why it is happening? It is because of Swabhava. And this influence of Agni in the Shukradhadu in a female is very, very important. This makes the female Shukradhadu capable of making the Stri Bija. And this sort of a boost is not enjoyed by the Shukradhadu in the male, fortunately. And that is why it succeeds in the making of Pumbija. This is very, very important. This happens in a peculiar span of the life, not always. Acharya Sushruta writes the karma of Shukradhadu. What is that? Shukram, Dhairyam, Chavanam, Preedim, Dehabalam, Harsham, Bijartham Chakaroti. So, according to this, Shukram, Bijartham Karoti. That is a function of Shukra. Bijartha means serving the purpose of Bija. The purpose of bija is to produce garbha. So Shukra serves the function of garbhotpadana. How? By making bijas, two different types, male and female. The Stri bija is Agneya because of its influence. The influence that is becoming a part of its very stuff, the influence of the Agni. So Stri bija is Agneya. Pum bija is Saumya. Pum bija is Saumya. Their Samyoga makes the Garbha. But Shukradhadu, in both male and female, is basically Saumya. By default, they are Saumya. But for a peculiar period, it behaves otherwise by the influence of a principle of Agni. And the female reproductive system is designed in such a way that the additional pitta which starts operating prior to the menarche creates an accumulation of rakta in Garbhashaya, which peaks in a month's time and then get expelled in the form of artava. So that expulsion, that flow of artava is a representation of the processes which are happening inside properly and optimally. So understanding or observing and studying the artava which is seen gives a clear idea about many things. Whether the Shukradhadu is getting the proper push of the Agni, whether the corresponding changes are happening in the Artavavaha Srotas, whether it is Samyag, whether it is Bija Samartham. That is why we find the word Bija Samartham Retosram Vadadi Kunapagrandhi Puyakshinam Alahvayam Bija Samartham Retosram. And with the expulsion of that artava, what happens? That brings down the surge in pitta temporarily, and then it restarts to get completed in the next 1 month's time. So this ritu itself is a word. I think that could be the first experience. The female menstruation can be one peculiar experience that the humans had in the beginning about a particular cycle which is happening, which they called as the masa. This periodic cyclic incident which is known as ritu. But at the same time, it shall be admitted that the finer aspects of these changes happening with this axis, that means the Shukradhadu Artavavaha Srodas axis in the female especially, is not well explained in the classics. And also the presence of a Bija Kosha is not well explained in the classics. Maybe I think for all practical purposes in Aushadhat Pradhana Chikitsa, Kaya Pradhana Chikitsa, that may not be essential, that could be the reason, but that is a fact. So Shukradhadu controls the getting ready of Bija. It masters the art of getting ready of Bija in both male and female. In male it is Saumya Bija, whereas in the female it is an Agneya Bija. This getting ready of Bija is happening in different avayavas in male and female. In the male it is related to the two Shukravah Srotasas, whereas in the female it is in the two Artavavah Srotasas. and the related avayavas. Maybe if you can call it as a Sroto Angani, like the Koshtangani. Koshtam is a huge Srotas which has got its own Koshtangas. Similarly, the Shukravaha Srotas can have Shukravaha Sroto Angani, Artavaha Sroto Angani. So that is happening everywhere. And in any case, Garbhodpadana needs a samyoga of the bijas. It is not going to happen alone in a body. So I think we have already crossed our regular time, but I thought of just completing the topic. Otherwise, it will have a break, which will we will miss the continuity. So that is some ideas about the Saptama Dhatu, the Shukra Dhatu. There is one point considering the definition of Shukra in the context of Dhatu Vriddhi, Kshaya and Dushti. How do you see or interpret Shukra Vriddhi, etc. in the female? Yeah, that is actually a very prejudiced notion. What we find is that Adhistri Kamadam Vruddham Shukram Shukrasmari Mapi. I think that is purely based on I should admit that there is a gender bias in that explanation. In the female, I think the same things regarding the desire for see the sexual relation or sexual contact may be happening, but I think being a very sensitive issue, there are many cultural and social aspects playing behind the expression or manifestation of these things. And that could be the reason why these ideas are not very well explained as it has happened in the case of male. Okay, so I hope that this idea has given some food for thought in the clinical plane, and that helps. Thank you so much. Here we conclude. Bhishajam sadhu vrittanam bhadramagamacharina abhyasta karmanam bhadram bhadram bhadrabhilashanam. Thank you and namaskar.